This podcast is recorded on Aboriginal land. We pay our respects to elders past and present and recognise that sovereignty was never ceded.
I like the idea that the recording cuts in. It's me going, go, give me your takes.
The
go,
cold
bam.
open Tanaki take. Welcome back to the Radical Online Leftist Pipeline podcast. I'm Mitch Alexander.
I'm Tom Tanaki.
I'm Celeste Little with 2 S's.
Celeste.
Let's jump into this one right now. So Susan Ley has been made the leader of the Liberal Party, and she's a numerologist. And that's basic. That's the take. I don't fucking know. What does the Liberal Party fucking do? The fact that she could get that high in the Liberal Party, I think, speaks to the fucking drain of quote unquote talent that party's at. Because at least when they were evil and effective, they were like, you were like, ooh, you know, the left are sparring with geniuses in the field of evil, and these are people that have dedicated their lives to evil. There's a fucking between Angus Taylor and Susan Ley. A fucking numerologist and a fucking pretend farmer cosplaying as a real fucking hell.
Let me check something here. You guys, particularly you know, I think, but both of you guys, you know more about like sort of electoral politics, intrigue, and what have you than me. I'm very willing to admit, particularly, you know, past few years. I learned about this from Cam Wilson's Crikey article about it, but that's just the first I learned about it. And maybe I'd never, but I don't know. Did I just not bother to find this out because I don't give a shit about Susan Ley or the intrigues of the internal? Did you guys know about this previously? Is what I'm asking.
The numerology stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I first heard about it maybe a decade ago. I think that...
Okay, so this is me just being a Luddite or an idiot.
I'm trying to remember what portfolio she held at the time, but I think that the AWU were taking the piss out of her because it had just sort of become knowledge then, and they're just sort of, look at this woman making comments about our working lives, and she consults numerologists and changes her name in order to...
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's where I first heard about it, but it has been something that's buzzing around for a little bit. I think it's being highlighted now, both because we got leftists, you know, doing a bit of piss taking, some white lady woo going on, but perhaps also the Liberal Party itself have decided to go with the white lady woo because they want to seem a little bit more moderate, and that's where they're at this point. But yeah,
I don't regard this stuff as, I don't think of this is not like bloody getting your tarot read or like, you know, like reading the star signs, is it? And those things I find a bit silly personally, even though I'm not. Like, I mean, it is what's in the broader realms, but I regard numerology as being more like the realm of people who, like, you know, maybe I got into in the lockdown era. You know what I mean? It's like a bit more deep end, from my perspective anyway. Don't you agree?
Yeah. As a Taurus with Scorpio rising, I agree with you.
That old chestnut.
The only reason I knew about it is because we, you know, were looking for funny angles in my last podcast. So I do have to thank Susan Ley for becoming a trove of, you know, potential bits for a podcast for me twice over my life across 2 different shows. So it is interesting you sort of say that, Tom, as well, because I went ahead for us and I did our name numerology for us. If you'd like to know, know what you are, at least according to Susan Ley and her outlook. So Celeste, you have a personality number 9, which means you are intellectual and humanitarian.
Well,
the inner dream number 9.
Congratulations for hearing that.
You'd be interested to know that the 9 is under the dominance of Mars, and you present your first impression as intellectual and real humanitarian. You are known for confidence, tolerance, and courage with a magnetic personality.
Well, look, that explains my entire life then, you know.
Right? Isn't it just Tom, you are courageous, daring, and aggressive.
Aggressive. You're aggressive. This is like a criticism.
You're ruled by the
Is this
sun?
your way that you're airing out podcast dirty laundry? He hasn't looked it up at all. He's like, you talk too much and you're aggressive.
This is fucked.
This is fucked. Numerology.
This is fucked. It says on this website, I did 3 different websites and they all say different shit. But this website for Tom says, you tend to be confident, strong, and independent. Your dream is to be a leader among the people.
What number was Tom?
Tom's a 1.
Oh, okay.
That is hot.
Tom Tarnicki.
That is hot. You go, Tom.
And me, I just like to let everyone know.
Yeah, what's your one, mate?
Just got to get into the mic here. I'm a number 5, which means I am witty, sensual, and curious. Mercury influences personality number 5.
What's your number?
I want to be free from everything, even from responsibilities. Although you are known for unusual daring to accomplish any work. I think this website needs a copy edit, to be honest. But there you go. I thought that'd be a fun way to bond and get to know each other, and for listeners to understand who we are as people, is to get our numerology down. Because if it's good enough for the fucking federal main opposition party, it's good enough for us.
Good enough for us lowly plebs down here.
Jesus fucking Christ. Like, I don't care if it was like in her past and she doesn't believe in it now, whatever. Like, it still speaks to some core character of the person who's susceptible to this sort of shit. Which, to draw a long bow, I will say that her position change on fucking Palestine has also been just an amazing demonstration of her susceptibility to bullshit. I don't know if you two are aware of her quote-unquote prior comments on Palestine. So,
no.
This is something from a while ago, 2008. She was co-chair of the Parliamentary Friends of Palestine, which in this SBS article described as an informal cross-party group which aimed to raise the experiences of Palestinian people. She once said, she was the sole voice in Parliament during a discussion about Palestinian autonomy in 2008, where she said, Susan Ley said, that that Gaza was besieged, contained, and on the brink of starvation, and that Palestinians had been airbrushed out of existence, and urged the international community to think not of Palestinian leadership, think of the people.
So she had a spine, and then what happened?
Getting anywhere close to power just evaporates the spines of these fucking people, just like Albo, who had the gall to do his...
Did she change her opinion when she got close to power?
Isn't it the weirdest
these people
thing?
did that sort of thing. Oh,
and it's just... And what's also fucking insane is that this SBS article was, you know, subtly, because they've got the charter, but subtly positioning itself as a like... Look how she fucking changed. What the fuck? Now she's saying that, you know, Israel has a right to defend itself and just, you know, just licking the boot of Israel. But fucking Sky News ran the same article, basically, with the same comments, but from a very like, oh, can you imagine these terrible comments? It's so good she's changed, but oh, we got to keep in mind. Because there was a lot of fucking interliberal fighting that went on. I don't know if you guys also saw the pamphlets that were sent out anonymously to Liberal members, Liberal membership, PMs and whatnot, or MPs, that had like 3 different candidates for leader of the Liberal Party. And I think it was like Angus Taylor, Protestant, and it was someone else, Catholic, and then Susan Ley, numerologist. It's like...
She went to Israel in 2022. So she was given the opportunity by AJAC to change her aberrant ways in 2022. She was sent off on one of the little junkets. They do, little junkets. Mm-hmm. She was sent off to Israel, leading a delegation on a trip organised by AJAC to reaffirm the coalition's commitment to West Jerusalem as the nation's capital and observe the impact of the Abraham Accords. Ley said the Accords and her visit changed her view. These are the transformative junkets. If you sent me off on a holiday to Hawaii, you know, I would come back transformed too.
A Hawaiian truther. So this is something I wanted to ask you about, Celeste, given your comments on Jacinta Price. So Jacinta Price went for a deputy, but she tied herself to Angus Taylor. Susan Ley won the vote 29-25 against Angus Taylor, who is considered more right-wing than the moderates of the Liberal Party, which is like the fucking prettiest hairless cat. Like, they're all right-wing freaks at this point. It's gross.
Yeah.
But how much do you think It was the misogynists sort of gritting their teeth and having to vote for a woman, even though they really don't like doing that in the Liberal Party. They fucking hate that. Compared to what clearly cost them the election was the real fringe, weird, Trumpian right-wing shit of especially Jacinta Price.
Yeah. Look, I think that we do have a bit of what I call an action-reaction dynamic, because I did year 12 physics. But it was like what did lose them the election was the right-wing freak takes that seemed to keep on coming out. You know, I said straight up, Dutton being too slow to recognise Trumpism wasn't going to work for him and it was fast going down the toilet was essentially what started chipping away. And then you had Jacinta with her, oh my goodness, like her MAGA moment. She did so much crap, but I honestly believe that what they've done here is they've tried to do the soft pillow option. They've tried to, they've tried to draw on their alleged moderates in order to build towards something slightly more palatable at a time. Never mind the fact that the Labor Party are right-wing freaks at this point in time. They're trying to appeal to some sort of humanity, because what lost them the election was a complete lack of humanity. But I will just throw this in the mix. I didn't realise that the vote was that close, but because I have been sleeping overnight, but I do think also, as I claimed in my bit, which I sent through, that this will not be the last that we see of Jacinta Price when it comes to the leadership challenges. Yeah. She is going to definitely be back, look towards the next election. I do predict that we will see another leadership challenge, possibly for the top job, and more than likely a swap from running for the Northern Territory Senate to running in the seat of Linyari again. In order to hold that.
She really is a voraciously power-hungry person, isn't she?
Oh God, yeah. This is what she's after. This is her ultimate goal, and look, she's been honest about that. She hasn't once pretended that she's not after leadership.
Yeah. Which is at least that's at least nice to know. Like, instead of it being lauded, like, no, I wouldn't dream of it. I mean, shut the fuck up. Like, I wouldn't know that you weren't thinking of it if you weren't power hungry enough to be one of these people that get into the front of the cameras. There's plenty of backbenchers I never fucking hear from. Go be one of them if you're not interested.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to sort of mention on this as well is, for all my sort of, laughter at someone like Susan Ley getting in, because we haven't got into it. I don't think we need to. She's part of the Liberal Party. She votes terribly all the time, always votes for the worst outcomes for immigrants, for women's safety, for women's health, for better situations for workers, poor people, unions, everything. Terrible voting record. But I don't think people should start gloating and talking about the 100-year reign of Albo coming in, because shit still sucks for a lot of people. People are still really disillusioned with the two major parties. And like what happened in New Zealand and like what we're seeing in Britain at the moment, you can have a thumping, nominally centre-left win. You can have that party, the Labor Party in all three countries, have a massive amount of votes, win a massive amount of seats, and then do nothing to fix the material conditions of people. And if you do that, everyone looks at you and goes, well, you're full of shit. You're not doing anything for me. I know you're not doing anything for me, so I'm going to take a chance on the person offering me something, and I don't care how fanciful it is. I don't care how right-wing it is. In New Zealand, the Labor Party were not wiped out, but they suffered a really massive loss, and the Conservatives got back in. And in the UK at the moment, fucking Nigel Farage's Reform Party is beating both the Conservatives and Labor, which, if people listening don't know, that is genuinely as if One Nation, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, was suddenly the major party of Australia. And that happens when a neoliberal, nominally centre-left party gets in and goes, everything's fine, we don't need to fix anything, we don't need to help anyone, we're just going to fiddle around the edges for GDP. So I fucking hope that's not what happens. I hope Labor become bold and centre-left again, but fucking fool me more than once at this point. I don't think they fucking will. So we need to be ready for a resurgent right wing come next election.
It's going to happen, bro. Yeah, I really firmly believe Dutton lost this election. And I think, our electorate being what it is, compulsory voting being what it is, we've had two parties that have had to sort of become more and more of a, what are all those minor right parties say, a uni party over the years, you know what I mean? Two wings of the same bird, all that, yada, 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 because they want to capture the most people, so they have to become as boring and as like each other as possible to get as many people. We've seen that sort of effect. Albo didn't get a mandate the first time around to do anything with any conviction, and he certainly didn't, and I don't think he's got it this time either. I think Dutton lost it because they look so much like each other that I think for once Dutton's turned to this sort of Aussie Doge thing, the Jacinta Price MAGA hat thing, the flips and flops about him and whether I'm meant to be replicating Trump or not. He actually, for once, gave Australian voters in that kind of main chunk of do I vote for Labor or Liberal, a reason to not vote for him. Yeah. And they never give people that. It's been years since they've done that. Yeah. So I actually think that for once people had a reason to not vote for one of the parties. And that's, I think it was his to lose, and he did lose it. I don't think Albo did anything. And I think for proof of that, well, how did he perform the first time round? People have been very unhappy with him, Yeah. And they're going to be again. I don't think he's been getting a mandate to sit on his fucking ass for a few years again. Yeah. So, we are ripe for a resurgent right here. Ripe. A resurgent far right. They just need more, they need a better crop than this current pack of monkeys, But Palmer's on his way out, There'll be a new generation, Hanson will be on their way out. Whoever comes up next, but it's right. And you're so right, Mitch. We need to be ready for it. It's going to happen.
I still, my one hope besides, an organised left, and congratulations to the socialists going federal as well. Hooray. Another left-wing party all across the country. Cool. Let's go.
That is rad. This is why Pingers isn't with us tonight, isn't it? Yeah. Obviously busy with that.
Recovering from a full day of posting.
Yeah. Hard posting. Congratulations to the Australian Socialists and all their state branches.
Yeah. But I just feel like something that has kept us lucky in this country, the lucky country, is that everyone who gets into politics is a fucking charisma void, and everyone sucks. And voters still, we're proud of tall poppy syndrome in this country. So I just feel like it wasn't the full reason, but I think a small part of Jacinta Price and Dutton's sort of downfall with that was trying to do the type of bravado that turns Australians off. It was less about, ooh, that's a dangerous precedent for racism in this country, and more like, don't be a fucking weirdo. Don't be a celebrity American style Gronk. We don't like that. And so I think the way, that old thing of a fascism will come to America draped in a flag holding a cross. I think fascism will come to Australia via the bureaucracy with 6 men wanting you to sign something in triplicate. We are a very boring, staid people who will let fascism come in down a very boring avenue as opposed to a spectacular figure. Like Farage or Trump or someone like that. So, and our voting system is set up to stop it.
It'll pander to the white supremacist politics and our history and that kind of thing. It'll definitely have there's a whole brand of nativist nationalists, white nationalists here who do the whole it's basically Nazism, but with a bit of wattle draped over it. You know what I mean? Neo-Nazism, Snugglepot and Cuddle Pie edition. They do that. And they'll do that. But, the right brand is not the Sewell NSN thing. They're growing as a nascent crew. But, not that kind of outright.
No, it's not that.
It's not that. It's not the patriotism that died in the arse after. It's going to be dishonest. And, it's going to hide it. Just have it little peeking out the corner. Just as a little. Yeah. No,
I love it, the fascism with Snugglepot and Cuddle Pie. You've kind of described the Australian Constitution in my eyes. But what you've said, what you both said, just actually feeds into that, because bureaucratically, with all of the things that I keep on crapping on about with the Constitution, we have it written into our structures. So yes, the the form of right-wing populism that happens here is going to be one that is written into our structures. It is going to be boring paperwork, resurgence.
Celeste, are you having it? Sorry, we were going to yarn about this at the start. You're tapped in from half a world away, mate. How you going? What's going on? Where are you? Tell everyone.
So I'm in the northwest of the Netherlands right now, in a little town called Leeuwarden. I've been in the Netherlands and Germany for the past 4 weeks, and unfortunately I'm flying back in next week. But just having a bit of a holiday, riding a bike. They ride a lot of bikes over here.
Hell yeah. So, we have to return bike supremacy over the e-scooter. We need to bring public non-electric bicycles for everyone, not these fucking 40k an hour e-scooter on a vape. I hate them. I'm so conservative with these things. I hate them.
Well, and one of the things about the majority of bikes here too, like these are the gearless back pedal brake kind of bikes that we all learn how to ride on. So, they're just riding. I have a cousin over here, and he lent me one. Weirdly, because I reckon, I don't reckon, I know, I mentioned Utrecht to you before I went away, because I was sort of like, I'm going to be tapping into this bit of family history with this brown dude that I descend from, this Dutch burger dude who stormed the Utrecht town hall throughout the Royalists and installed democratic elections. I go and land in that town, find his little gable stone, but I also have a cousin from my paternal side of the family who lives in that place as well. So suddenly both sides of my family are converging on the same town in the Netherlands.
Amazing. That's wild.
But I got to see the gable stone. Oh, 2 seconds.
Oh.
Sorry, I got to see the gable stone. I got to see at the Utrecht town hall where Quinton Darcher and his patriot mates stormed the town hall. There's been a gable stone that's been put in, and it was put in by Sir Christopher on Darcher, who is now suddenly a distant cousin of mine, which is rather cool. Him and his brother, Michael, who wrote The English Patient. So suddenly I've got this family history. But I'm just sort of, as I've said before, my family tree was already a bit haywire before that. We've got a number of interesting figures in it, and this has just added a new line. But I went on to my next stop, which was Maastricht in the southeast of Netherlands, really close to both the Belgian and German borders. Mm-hmm. And I go, I should be right here. There's no family connection that I know of here at all. When I went down to that region, I'm sitting there reading my little book as I left the region and realised that Maastricht is precisely where Quinn when he was exiled following the Royalists taking back the town hall. So I've been on this weird sort of little journey, but I'm up in the maritime region now. As far as I know, there's no family connection here.
There will be. Like your a great uncle was like the founding mayor of the town, without doubt. I don't know if you two know, but I think some listeners will be tickled by this, but you're basically doing a holiday that would be like the wet dream of a Crusader Kings fan. There's just this, which is just basically true. Medieval spreadsheets. And all it is tracing like family lineages and setting like plots and stuff against each other. But the fact that so many of us like, that's a really cool game, I should do that, and then just don't. And you're just like, I went through the tree and now I'm just traveling around fucking Europe, seeing where the Royalists threw out my ancestors.
Well, this is the thing. It's Celeste has happened to find out that, family lineage over there is interesting enough to warrant doing it. It is. Like, it's really worth going over to go, I stood in this ground with this battle was fought. You know what I mean? If I had a fucking fan about all these fucking battles, insurgent battles and such, I'd feel like a mad cunt. I'd be over there and,
I'm going to be completely honest about it too, because, a big part of my excitement with all of this and the fact, apart from me being a total nerd, and if I find something interesting enough to me, I will research it till the cows come home. Yeah. I'm that kind of person. But But finding out that the white side of my family couldn't even manage to be white was kind of good because yeah, you know, this dude was Burger. He was born in Sri Lanka. He died in Java. The other thing that I have really noticed, which I guess has been it's been nice and it's been interesting to see, was whenever I've gone to a museum or, you know, done those sorts of cultural activities, the Dutch in every single museum and that problematize their own history. So all of a sudden, you know, I'm going through an exhibit about the West India Company and they're talking about the slave trade and talking about how fucked this and that was, offsetting or, you know, this dude was considered a legend of this thing. However, he was also a major slaver and laying it all out in a way that I rarely see in Australia. And it's really, it's taught me, going through all this sort of research has taught me a bit of, and I have a long way to go. So please, everyone, you know, where I'm going to fail here, please don't jump on me. Know that this is still very much in process sort of thing. But the pride that I see with Dutch people speaking numerous different languages, and problematizing history, and the difference between the British forms of colonization and that, it has highlighted to me how different processes of colonization have worked across the world, and what the differences of those can be several generations down the track. Like, it has been fascinating, but I'm yet to go to a museum and see a bunch of national heroes just sort of, but this dude was also a cunt because...
That's interesting. I wonder if there is something to, like, if you weren't a major empire, like Britain was the major empire, France a close second, but I wonder if there's something to, like, these other ones have had to more quickly and more abruptly reckon with their history and place in the world. And if that's gone out into the population more to be like, yeah, we should fucking reconsider this.
Well, I think very basically what I've noticed, because like the West India country is acknowledged as being worse than the East India, both had forms of slavery that operated in their colonies. So that's a bit messed up. But the driver, like, you know, in the case of Australia and Britain, the driver was the establishment of a penal colony. They needed somewhere to throw their most disheveled, most their underclasses who they couldn't stop throwing in prisons to the point of where they ran out of room and decided they needed an entire continent to do it in. When it comes to the Dutch, the major driver of colonization was actually trade. So there was an imperative to learn languages to get along, at least with the upper classes of the places that they were going, in order to establish those relationships. So the slant and the impacts of that end up being a bit different. And as I said, that is such a basic entry level position, and there's so much more to it than what I've just said. But when you see the pride that's taken in speaking multiple languages, and how that's kind of something, you know, it's Australia actively doesn't do that. We don't take pride in speaking multiple languages. It's like, this is it.
Like you've always said, though. Like, I mean, the White Australia policy set a foundation there, didn't it? Like, this is the thing. I think people also kind of like to imagine themselves as, if not outside of culture and history, able to extract themselves from it in ways. And that's a big piece. And that's why I still think it is really useful to have, like, you know, to acknowledge your own failings in these areas and stuff. It's not just a sort of intellectual exercise. It's to recognize that, like, my brain is just wired now, hardwired in ways that will never change, to think and feel certain things in certain ways. And it's an active process to work against that, as opposed to, I just recognize it once and then change it. And that stuff is driven by legislation. and TV shows and microaggressions and all that sort of shit. Like, it all does feed into it. And
you can't recognise your place in history unless you know that history, you know.
So, let's properly understand our current place in history a little bit better, though, Tom. What's happening in politics at the moment? I'm not talking about federal politics. I'm talking about something deeper and more important, something that our cultural importance, of historical importance. Tom, what's going on really in Australia at the moment? Help us understand this impactful moment.
Yeah. Of course, what Mitch is referring to is the Abby Chatfield Clementine Ford controversy.
Shit, my shithead.
I believe. No, look, I appreciate that you know, giving this issue the proper situation. You know what I mean? The defining cultural issue of our time, the defining cultural rift of our time, and of course, you know, we all know. Listeners of this podcast will know that this issue cannot and will not be synthesized into a take that we can all move forward with until I weigh in, because this is about Clementine Ford and Abby Chatfield, the two of the three great political influences in the nation, and I am the third. I'm the third item of the trifles.
I honestly thought it could either go Abby Chatfield, Clem Ford. I thought for some reason you were going to say Ned Kelly as just figures of Australian history and culture. Anyway.
I'm the third one. I'm like Zelda. You know what I mean? They can be Ganon and Link. Sorry, shout out to my Nintendo lore nerds out there. Sorry, I've gotten carried away. What was I talking about? I got lost thinking about Triforce.
This fucking
Zelda
beef.
Lore.
So
let's give people some. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
I didn't know what was going on.
You didn't know.
It was floated as a topic to talk about, and I Googled it, and every fucking news website is covering this shit.
It is interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting
to me.
That's happening.
I am so glad I'm getting Dutch returns on the news websites.
You can go on Pedestrian and learn about this. And these are ostensibly...
Und Clem Ford, und spat und Influencers. It can't escape.
If you don't know, go on Pedestrian. But if you don't know, like basically we're talking about Abby Chatfield has for some time been contributing, you know, she's a big girly pop influencer. Let's face it, you know, got a big audience. She's an influencer, but she wants to do politics things, and she, you know, and a lot of the politicians wanted to do softball big influencer interviews. So they went and they sat with that Aussie Man Reviews bloke, and they sat with, you know, Abby Chatfield, and it's softball to a degree, you know, because they're not bloody journos, of course, you know. Yeah. But there's a, you know, and Abby's got normie centre-left politics about her, save for Gaza, which she has a conscience on. She can see that there's a genocide happening, and she cares about that. And but you know, it's just a video that a lot of the sort of the online, very online left and like pro-Palestinian types are pointed to, in which she got excited after the election. She said something like, "Yay, I don't have to care about this for another 3 years."
Yeah.
And hello, that's what a lot of people who aren't fucking online posting 400 Instagram story slides a day about politics. That's what a lot of people are like.
Or one politics podcast a week.
Yeah, or one like this nerd shit. Yeah, exactly. Us fucking losers. A lot of people it's over in normie world. And Abby's got the normies, you know what I mean? So I think my personal opinion is that, like, you know, these influencers, they can't really be made to conform. You know, they just. I think you're lucky someone's talking about Gaza whilst catering to the girly pops at all. I do. Yeah. And furthermore, I don't think radical politics will live or die with or without the cosign of Abby Chatfield.
That's
the
big thing.
Yeah. But Clementine Ford thinks otherwise, and this is their spat. You know what I mean? Clem has made no bones about criticising that. And some of the things that I'm saying here about more my take is, I've said it. And open disclosure, I even said it the other day, and I ended up having a chat with Clem. You know, I've talked with Clem for a long time here and there. We're very polite, very civil with each other. I've helped her out with a little thing or two over the years from memory, and we had a very civil chat. We obviously have a difference of opinion about it, but it just was a chat in the old days. You know what I mean? Just the other day. But I do, so when I sort of come out to say all this, I don't really mean to slag off any of them. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of emotions, and it's a little bit difficult because when you talk about these things, as we all well know, you're talking about large influences, and I say this of both Abby and Clem, who have lots of people who are having parasocial relationships with them, and if you critique them, you suddenly have a lot of parasocial enemies. You know what I mean? You suddenly take on a lot of new parasocial rivalries. So I don't want that, obviously. I don't want that smoke. But also, I think it's more important that we try and synthesise a take coming out of this about what is to be done here. The problem, as I see it, is that I don't think you can, like, hector from the left a big girly poppy influencer to get them, to shake them up about their performance on something like Palestine. You know, my co-host here may or may not agree, but I think that I do think there's a note of, like, critiquing or really attacking people who come in with big platforms and they say a few things, or even like Abby, they say a lot of things about Palestine, but they don't quite say them, you know, from a hardline enough position, so it's not impeccable speech. So there ends up, and there is a bit of a culture in pro-Palestinian activism here for a lot of, like, non-Palestinian people, I might add, with big audiences who are, like, really bopping people over the head going, you are talking about it a lot, but you aren't talking about it enough. And I don't think that's very helpful. And that's what my take is. You know what I mean? I'm going to read something out. One of my favourite voices of sort of like a local Palestinian activist who really wants to build a movement and is sick of all the bullshit. And there has been a lot of bullshit that's come out of, like, the sort of the pro-Palestinian organising space in Australia, Fahad Ali. And I interviewed Fahad not long after the post-October the 7th Israeli genocidal campaign began. In Gaza and increasingly in the West Bank as well. I interviewed Fahad, still a great interview on my channel, some real basics that we went through now that I think a lot of people are. I still think it's a great interview, and I really love Fahad. And he posted something not long ago, actually, and not that I mean to sort of sweep him into this situation, because he wasn't posting, as far as I'm aware, about either of these people or anything, but, well, his opening line was, I require some lefties to shut up. But I just wanted to say that Fahad is not specifically talking about Clem or Abby here, and neither am I. I'm more talking about the hectoring kind of from the left, like, you know, someone's deigned to talk about Palestine a bit. Well, we better fucking jump on their neck in the hope that they'll perform better. I don't think that works. What Fahad said was, I require some lefties to shut up. The radicalism in your head can't feed the hungry or shelter the poor. We have to build a mass movement to take power. But every single day I see people squabbling and fighting and trying to excommunicate each other. Enough. Focus on the task. I also don't know where you think you get permission to decide who and who isn't an ally to the Palestinian cause. Oh, you're traumatised by having to watch a genocide? We've been traumatised for decades. The way some people flew in post-October the 7th and act like they own the joint. Anyway, love you, Fahad. Thank you so much for your words and your thoughts there. Yeah. That is my take. I don't think people really get to be, you know, hectoring people from the left in a space that needs everybody on board as much as possible in whatever way they can, even if it's in a kind of a girly pop centre left way. That's my thoughts. What do you think? Look, what Fahad has said is really, really rung true to me. And I think that I haven't made it a secret, but a lot of the reason why I'm not on a great deal of public social media anymore is because
what I saw over a lot of time was people assuming that engaging in some sort of call-out culture for those who weren't getting things perfect, or were pretty entry level, or were, you know, perhaps appealing to a different group of people. The likes of me, who I would never, for example, I'd never appeal to Abby Chatfield's audience. There's no way in the world that's going to happen. We're two different people from two different worlds. She is tapping in via something else. But people were mistaking the forms of call-out culture as actually taking action. And that's not taking action. That's not forming a political voice, and it's not elevating the voices of those who need it the most. So a lot more time would be better spent if this is people's entryway into understanding Palestine, or understanding racial rights, or feminism, or whatever else, so be it. But a lot more time, rather than calling out individuals who do build these platforms, I think would be better spent than using them as the basis to move on to those voices that actually are speaking from within those lived experiences, and elevating them a bit. You know, I think that, allyship, tearing down allyship, or focusing too hard on calling out it when it goes a little bit awry, or doesn't quite cover what people think it should be covering. I don't know. I always think that if somebody does provide a space where somebody else comes along and starts asking a little bit more questions about the normie views that they've formed their entire lives due to exposure to politicians, media, and mass culture, and whatever else, then that's kind of a good thing. And there's the better role to play is to elevate the voices of those who are living this daily.
I agree with all that, though I feel like I have a somewhat contradictory take. I don't disagree. I just have a different angle where, I mean, it sounds like I do disagree, but like, as a counterpoint, I think that, because Abby Chatfield did a bunch of work with the Greens campaign directly, like toured up the East Coast with them, doing like dance parties and stuff, is a big thing. And I can't know for sure, but I don't think any of that was planned before she got pushback from that Albo interview with a whole bunch of people, like you said, Tom, hectoring her online, being like, you're platforming Albo. He was a softball interview. That was shit, blah, 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 and going hard on her on that. And I think that may have, I don't know, that may have had an effect on getting her to actually do what she thought was good campaigning for the party that she wanted to win.
Yeah. Actually, this rings a bell. I think we yarned about this earlier, maybe offline. Yes.
And so that's the thing. So like in that instance, I think there's a good case to be made that maybe that did actually have an effect and it moved the needle politically the way we want to. But I still think ultimately at the end of this, I don't think we should be hectoring anyone. And I think, like Celeste, you were hinting to it as well. I think critique, and especially critique of influencers, normie influencers, new media coming through, the way it launders a genocide without even knowing that it is. Like, at least old school, at least The Guardian and the BBC know that they're sending missives saying, don't fucking mention it. These young people getting into content, let alone journalism, who do not know that, and this was a critique that has been leveled at them, they do not know when politicians are using them. They do not know what it means to get a position out there without any proper pushback. We'll just, that works for the politicians, right? But I think what we need to do is critique the systems and the platforms and the styles used broadly by influencers on the whole. I don't think there's anything. There's nothing that comes. There's nothing good that comes from just going, this one particular influencer is a big piece of shit for this particular reason.
That's right. Yeah, and if you're working with a large platform to create a culture where that's all you fucking do, and that's all everyone always does is picks the next big head to pop up and then pops it down. Yeah, that's not a productive culture. But I agree with you that the overarching system that seems to be promulgating very large influences is like one of the primary carriers of political discourse, who are often just idle fucking dilettantes, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, I think that Abby Chatfield is putting people onto good politics, like maybe wising people up to it, but I don't think that Abby Chatfield is particularly studied. I don't think anyone's thinking that. that she's particularly studied on politics. Like, so there is this idle dilettante sort of fucking bullshit influencer culture, and like, you know, and then there's politicians who are blame it on the pollies. They're the ones going to influence it because they know they're going to get an easier ride than, you know, they get journalists to interview them. They're doing that as a deliberate strategy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, the culture needs to be critiqued.
Yeah. And I think like part of that too is that this is all nascent media. This is new. These people don't know what they're doing. All they know is that they don't want to do journalism the old way it's being done. They don't want to do entertainment the way it's being done. So critique is a really good way of making sure it doesn't fall off the edges. It doesn't get picked up by the far right and genuine neo-Nazis. We need critique to keep things in line, moving in a way that helps the most amount of people, and biasedly from a left-wing perspective. Absolutely. But yeah, I agree with you guys that I don't think this calling out, the public calling out and shaming of someone to a like quite severe degree. Some of these people are having a real fucking hard time emotionally and mentally because of this. And like, that's not helping anyone with anything. That's not the way to do it. But critiquing the idea of influencers, which I will say as well, I think there's more analysis to be done, but I don't think they really had much of an impact this election. I don't think the memes and the interviews and the Instagram profiles did shit. Greens vote barely moved. Sort of helped Vic Socialists. Didn't fucking help Liberals. I don't know. I don't think it's... Anyway, shut the fuck up about your takes about individual influencers and join together to critique the platforms and the politicians. That's my hot take.
I love it. I love your work.
Thanks for listening to another episode of our fun little podcast. If you have some hot leftist election takes you want to send through, I'd love to see them. Any questions for us to read out? Sometimes we do that. We should do that more. Queries, clarifications, whatever. alpdotgov@proton.me. Shoot us your emails. Thanks for listening, and tell a friend about us, or tell a few friends. Share it around.
Some other little bits and pieces around the town, and sorry.
Don't
do
pause,
your
just
thing.
leave it.
Do
Keep
your
it
thing.
going. Keep it going. Well, let's make up things that Celeste has done as she goes to get the door at the hotel. It was also fun that she went to an F1 race. She's a big Max Verstappen fan who's from the Netherlands,
she's obsessed with F1.
We don't talk about it on the recording, but she like all Celeste will do is get on and fucking chew our ear off for about 15 minutes before we record about the F1.
We've resisted every single episode of this podcast to have F1 be the main subject matter. The radical online F1.
What's really
I'm
funny
not
about
into
that,
it.
Though, is Jordan and I are really into it, and I have gone to it. Yeah, I'm just throwing Celeste under the bus. Nah.
Do you like when the cars go?
Oh man, when they go,
Is that your favourite?
when you watch cars go around a circuit and then just keep going in a circle, and then they park at the end, but someone did it faster than everyone else. Oh, it fucking gets me going. They don't
Celeste
take anything
back.
everywhere.
Are you hearing this shit? He's just said that he and Jordan both love F1.
Oh my
What?
God.
You go to where do you go to Grand Prix?
Yeah. I would never pay for it.
I don't know why I find this so funny. It's
so incongruous. It doesn't make because I want the abolition of F1. That it is an exorbitant waste of fossil fuels. It is bad.
Yeah,
for the
you
environment.
know it's bad.
100%.
We get that.
But if it's on, if it's gonna be on, I'm gonna watch the cars go fast.
Why
in a
can't
circle.
we all go to a Grand Prix together?
Because it's about $750 a ticket to watch these fucking... Dude, some of the grandstand tickets are so much fucking money. It's disgusting. It's so fun.
Can someone give us them to us? Like, sure. Hang on. Listen,
No, we're not asking. We're not asking.
Hang on. You're listening to this podcast, and you've got tickets the next time one of the big Brum Brums happens. Just give us a thing. Just get us in there. Yeah, get us in if you love us so much. Because you've got clout, then you get us in there and we'll talk about your like fucking Brum Brums and a bit of politics. A little frisson of politics, but mostly Brum Brums. I'll make it all up. I love the big wheels.
All right, I'm so fucking lost right now.